I would like to welcome our next speaker. This is our in-person speaker, so it's my honor to welcome Robert, who's been working with sustainable development and democratic governance for the United Nations, European Commission, and Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. He's one of the co-founders of the Swedish National and Baltic Regional Networks of Ecovillages, is a member of Gotland Regional Educational Council, and is developing the Learning and Residential Centre in the Suderbyn Ecovillage. He's also a Green politician here on the island, so welcome, Robert. And I think this is a nice sort of continuation of what has just been asked also about community and connection. So I pass it on to Robert.
Thank you very much. Okay, I hope everyone can hear me and see me. Put the camera up a little bit so my head doesn't get chopped off. Or that's, yeah. Can we, yeah, okay, good. Okay, and let's put this on to presentation mode there. And presentation mode. Okay. Okay, I'm very happy. It's still not. Yes. Okay. See if it comes up on the screen now. There, very good. Okay, I'm very happy to be with you. I think this will be a little bit different than the previous speakers, even though I'm really happy that each of the three previous speakers have mentioned something that I think is coming into this as well. But this is very much looking forward, and I've been given the license to assume some assumptions that maybe are very far-reaching, that I'm basically basing my talk on the acceptance that you've already accepted the idea that we have a collapse coming, and then being able to react from that and what to do moving forward. And that's why I also wanted to label this as embracing collapse. And this is something that, instead of trying to figure out what to do, but just to accept it and see what is the next step. Let's see if I can move this along here. Yeah, and one of the first things that I would want to put out there as just the basic ground rules is this image from permaculture and the three ethical principles of permaculture about earth care, people care, and fair share. And I think this is extremely important, and we'll be coming back to us in when we're figuring out what actions we should be taking, but to always be conscious of our need to care for the earth as much as we can now, but to care for people, which means also our own self-care, but also to think about our relationship to all other living things on the planet, which is the fair share. So we'll be coming back to that as well, and see how this affects what we can be doing. The other big concept I would throw out there, and I saw already, I think it was Vanessa in the chat, referring to this, the work that reconnects, Joanna Macy's life work over many, many decades, extremely important, bringing together action and, I would say, eco-emotions. So this is work that's been done, a lot of work, a lot of material that's out there, a lot of people involved in this. And this is something I would like to really have as the basis of what I'm talking about. And that's why the great turning, something that Joanna Macy has referred to about where we're going into. I see this as a big curvature, a big turn in the road. And what it makes it impossible for any of us in our individual eco cars going forward or bicycles going forward on this path. You can't really see around that long curvature, We can only see a few years into the future, so you have to keep yourself agile, nimble, ready to handle change, because there is a lot of uncertainty out there that we can't really know what the future society looks like, and things are changing very rapidly. So just to be prepared for that. And she points out the three points, and we'll come back to those, but about holding actions, trying to protect that which can be protected. We need the Earth's functions as functioning as possible. We need the biodiversity as functioning as possible. So all we can do is really important to do. That's sort of the impetus of why eco-activists are out there, trying to protect so much of the planet, so much of life that is possible, because we're going to need it. We're going to need it. The other next point would be the Gaian structures. These are the structures that are beneficial in that future, in these rapidly changing situation. What are the structures that we need to have in place to help us through this rapid change that we're going through? We'll come back to that. And then the shift in consciousness. And I think a lot of that comes in through the previous speakers as well, about mentally preparing ourselves and opening our minds up for the change that has to happen, and preparing ourselves, emotionally, intellectually, physically, for the expectations that are going to be put upon us. So if I dig right into it, I would like to propose that community is essential. Community is essential. I think Frida just mentioned community, or Marlies mentioned community as being important. I'm sure everyone agrees that you need a support group, a safety net around you to be able to handle these rapid changes. So community is super important. And I would go back, if you allow me to go back 3 million years, our genus Homo has been living in small groups for 2.5, 3 million years. We've done very well. Our biology is very much adapted to that. We need a support structure of a community around us. And I think that's important. To reduce our vulnerabilities, that could be anything from emotional to physical. Secure the basic needs. We need to figure out ways to make sure our physical needs and our psychological needs can be met in a regenerative manner. We need to avoid fear-based hate ideologies. This is really important, and I'll come back to that as well. And the opposite side of the coin is strengthening empathy in order to handle the change and the pain and the suffering that will be coming. We also need to increase our empathy. So these are really important to protect ourselves, to create a personal resilience to handle the change that's coming. Then I want to look into not embracing the change because it's going to bring something also very positive. We're talking about higher well-being. The current state of the world, as many of you fully understand, is not delivering high well-being for most of the people on the earth. I would even suggest a very large percentage of the people on the earth are not receiving high well-being from the current system. And we are able to actually create higher well-being. This has actually been researched and proven. I actually have one of the few scientific papers I've written, the Ecovillage experience as an evidence base for national well-being strategies, where I've looked at practices in ecovillages that are proven to deliver well-being, subjective well-being of those persons involved. But those practices that we do on a basically a daily basis in my community and other communities are actually things that by trial and error have been developed during 50 years in ecovillages to deliver higher well-being. And science is now showing that this connection is possible. Or this is this can be proved, that this is a fact. So appreciation and celebration is really important. Your connection with the people around you, reconnecting with nature, being out in nature as much as possible, and mindfulness, being in the moment, appreciating the moment, appreciating where you are really important. And so I sort of label this as going from hyper-individualism to what has been termed neo-tribalism, that we need to go back to those tribes that we've been living with and living in for so many millions of years. And this is also this search for authentic and emotional community. We really need a support structure to help us through these very rapidly changing times. Then I go over to this very practical call to action. So moving, away from the eco-anxiety. Now Marlies has just told us there's not 100% correlation between dealing with your eco-anxiety and making action. But I think it's a very good way, and because also the action, I think, also connects in with the supportive community around you. I think it is a very good strategy, coping strategy. We're talking about how do we create a life-sustaining society? How do we get out of here? And channeling to love-based solidarity, inclusive, empathetic passion to support people and all living things around you. And this is back to Joanna Macy's 3 points up from the diagram up there, where we need to do what we can to stop the destruction of the earth and the beings on the earth, reduce as much damage as possible. We need also to create these regenerative structures and practices. How can we figure out how can we live harmoniously with nature? And some people would go that there's something wrong with humans. Humans are the problem. And that is definitely not so. Humans have lived in harmony with nature for such a long time. It's only a current cultural issue we have, a recent cultural issue we've picked up in the last 10,000 years that we have to deal with. We have to somehow get that negative culture out of our culture in order to create something new. And instigating a cognitive revolution and a spiritual awakening. This awakening, this shift of consciousness, where we actually have to appreciate being part of nature, that we have to appreciate all the things that are so wonderful and freely available that we're missing. Okay, let's go to the next one. I feel that we're running out of time here. This image is something from the Ecovillage movement, and I wanted to, because I am very much from the Ecovillage movement, that the Ecovillage movements are not simply eco, but they actually integrate social, cultural, economic, and ecological aspects together in a whole systems design, trying to meet people's, not only their physical needs, but their emotional needs, and making everything fit together nicely. This is the whole challenge of what eco-villages are trying to do. And I think that is really important, but we have to go even pushing it forward. So these creative Gaian structures, we have a lot of organizations supporting people trying to change their structures around them. I think of the transition movement, permaculture movement, but especially the eco-village movement. There are others, so community-supported agriculture, etc. Try to figure out new ways to live lighter on the earth, and making it happen, not just talking in theory, but actually moving into practice. And eco-villages, of course, are, I think, very good examples, experiments, diversity, incredible diversity in eco-villages of all these good examples. But what's important here is that these are only a transitional state. Eco-villages are not the answer. They are a transitional solution which we can learn a lot from. Yeah. And then finally, rewilding the earth and rewilding ourselves. So we human beings have put such a pressure on the planet, have dominated so much of the surface of the planet and changed it, that we actually do need to focus on helping, removing at least this Anthropocene pressure on the earth to allow the earth to bounce back and try to reestablish some of its own resilience, or the different actors in the biosphere to rebound. And that includes ourselves, human beings also working with themselves. And I think I have one last slide here, which it's very much on the edge of figuring out where we should be going, because obviously even my community, we've worked for 15 years, but we're so far away from being prepared for where we need to be. So I'm talking about a rewilded community where we work with how we interface as part of nature, but also how to work with ourselves and ourselves in a community. And this is some of the interesting areas that I think we need to be working on in the very near future, of figuring out how we can actually support our basic needs, both physically and emotionally, in a more rewilded state. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert, for bringing in perspectives from eco-villages, and for also introducing us to some very on-the-ground solutions and projects that may help us to also hold some of these emotions and not forget that there is another way, and that there are different narratives to be created. I wonder if there are any questions here in the room. Do we have any questions? I'm going to have a look at the chat to see if there are any questions coming in here. No. In that case, maybe I can ask you how you feel eco-anxiety or eco-emotions are being addressed and or experienced within the eco-village movement or communities that you're also in contact with.
Well, I think there seems to be a huge interest now just about dealing with collapse and how we deal with collapse. And what is collapse? Is collapse something far in the future? Is it just a theory, or is it already happening? Are people on Earth in places like Somalia or Lebanon or Venezuela already experiencing collapse? And how we work with that, and how we prepare ourselves for that. And I think there's a lot of eco emotions involved with that. And I think this issue with eco emotions, of course, is something that's going to stay with us in this process. So it's not just, even if you accept collapse and move forward, there's so many things of changing and transforming yourself and your lifestyle that is going to put a lot of pressure on your eco emotions even going forward.
Thank you for that. Again, I'm just going to check the chat. There's a question, yes, from Vanessa.
Yes.
Please.
Yes, thank you for this talk. It's more of a comment than a question. I have recently been reading Pablo Servigne, who is very, very well known here in France. He was a climate scientist and now calls himself a collapsologist. Are you familiar with his work? Because he's going in exactly this direction of saying, well, there's collapse is coming, and how do we deal with it? And he has some really hands-on books. I think it's called Another End of the World is Possible, something like that. That go exactly in this community, searching a community direction, as you have been presenting.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I'm very aware of his initial work on this, and basically the creation of collapsology as sort of an area of study. Yeah, I don't know exactly what his latest proposals are, and there are a lot of proposals out there. I think that's what we need right now, is we need this, we say in Swedish, let 1,000 flowers bloom, because there is no solution. The Great Turning is so complex, we cannot really fully understand what is needed or how would humans be able to live completely harmonious with nature. And that's something that we're trying to figure out, which I think personally is a huge curiosity and my intention to work with that particular area of figuring out how we can actually create community that can be supportive of both collective and individual reintegration into nature.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions? Any other thoughts or comments that want to be shared, either here or on the chat? No. Yes, we have one here.
I was just curious about the governance that you've been working with for the UN in general. Like, if you'd like to comment on that. Or...
Yeah, well, I can. This dissonance between talking about what I'm talking at the same time I'm a politician. I'm also an international election observer. So it's sort of a strange situation to, but for me it makes a lot of sense. Democracy is really important because preparing ourselves for what's coming, we really need agile governance. We need governance that is ready to meet the challenges, and there will be huge challenges, and I don't think our democratic structures actually are strong enough to handle the stresses that are coming. So, but still, democracy is so much better than the lack of democracy for governments adjusting to and supporting the people. So that's why it's very, very important that we support democracy and that we also challenge democracy, and that everyone in your countries challenge your democratic representatives to what are they going to do about the problem? How are they preparing? How are they building resilience in our society to handle the shocks that are coming, to make sure that there is minimal suffering? And I think that's something that really weighs heavily on me. I've been very active also in advocacy towards government structures, particularly like the European Commission, European Parliament. Wake up, because there's so many people that will be suffering, especially people in very urban environments, very suburban environments that are simply not prepared psychologically, emotionally, or physically for a collapse. Yeah.
Thank you.